Our world is in desperate need for godly men, strong and courageous husbands, fathers, and leaders. Here, we are raising the bar in the game of life. Here, we are challenging ourselves to perform better in the home, on the field, in the boardroom, and within our communities. We are here to disrupt the norm and create kingdom change in our homes, our businesses, and our culture, bringing glory to God and performing for an audience of one. You were created for this. You were created for greatness. This is the Raising Kingdom Warriors podcast. I hope you're ready. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, wherever you're at, whenever you're listening. Welcome back or welcome to the Raising Kingdom Warriors podcast. I'm your host, Joel Pellin, where the mission is simple. Want to add value to you today. Want to add value to you as a husband, as a father, as a leader. And today we're going to have that by having on Chris Rodack. Chris is an author, coach, fellow podcaster, owner of Rising Fathers, equipping men to lead well. His program, Men of Fire, helps men to rise in their fitness, their family, their focus, and their freedom. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. Happy to have you. Or happy for you to have me. I messed that up already. But glad you reached out and we're doing this. Seems like a great guy.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited because I've followed you on Instagram for a little bit. I see what you're about. We're in very similar lanes. We want to impact men to become better men so that we can raise better children, have better marriages and better families and better lives. So I wanted to start with you and where your journey started out at with this whole Rising Fathers organization that you started.
Sure. It kind of starts, my whole story, if anyone follows Rising Father at all, I kind of delve into my story a lot, and that's what causes a lot of my content, my podcast, and all of that. So I'm really open about that. So, to do like an hour-long podcast story in 30 seconds here. I grew up in a big family, went to school for music to be a teacher, and right before I got married, I got ripped and shredded with P90X, this beach body workout.
I remember.
It's still awesome. It's still a great workout. Yeah. And I got legit ripped with that, had an 8-pack. And then right after I got married, we went to Sandals, Jamaica. I got fat. I think I gained like 12 pounds in 1 week. And then we got married and we did the kind of wedding where you have to bring your own alcohol. So we saved a lot of money, but then we had like kegs and vodka and stuff at our house. So we drank all summer. And by the end of summer, I probably gained like 30 pounds. And then it was like 10 straight years of going up and down in weight. I felt so good whenever I was ripped and disciplined and working and felt amazing. And then I only felt that way at spurts during the next decade when I was trying to get back to that point. So I always wanted to get back there. And also I was a teacher. So I fell in love with music in high school. What happened was I was in high school and I really loved my band teacher. So as a child without a formed brain, I thought, well, because I love playing the saxophone in band class, that means I should do that for the rest of my life. So being a teacher is far different than just enjoying a class, which many teachers will tell you. So I went to school for music. All I wanted to do was teach music. Came out, got the job I wanted, got like my dream teaching job at the place I wanted, and then 14 years passed, and there's a lot more to teaching than just teaching music. Actually being in the class and impacting kids and making music is like 5% of the job. So I started to look for ways to quit my job. I started an ad agency. I hired a business coach, took his program. He taught me how to build an online income. So I did that. I was on the way to quitting my job, and then COVID hit, and I lost everything, went to zero. And then I was kind of depressed for a year because I thought I was going to quit my job with that income. And then I got fat once again. And then with the same coach, same program, we started talking about building brands and stuff like that. So I had so much stress and anxiety from the ad agency, from client emails and cancellations and income. I said, whatever I want to do next, I need to start something that is what I'm really obsessed about and think about. And like when my son was born, like I will never forget the very first day, just staring him in the eyes. And like, even as my weight has fluctuated, my discipline has fluctuated, I'm still like being a dad is still the only, not the only thing, but one of the only things I think about is just my kids and how I can be the best father I can be. So I said, well, I'm just going to start
I
a,
didn't get that. Could you try again?
you can cut that out. Is that me?
Yeah, I think so.
Quiet, Siri. Um,
Okay, changed it.
Jesus, sorry.
It's all right.
Um, well, anyway, so I said, I want to start something that, um, whatever business I start is what I think about. And that's be a better man, fitness. It's being disciplined. Like I really wanted to get these things back. So I started the Rising Father brand about 4 years ago now. And really it was just social media. I started a website, a blog. So I started writing articles and blogs about fatherhood, marriage, those kind of things. And as I did this, I was getting in better shape. I started jujitsu. I joined a different program to help me get in shape. Through jujitsu, I lost like 30, 40 pounds. I started lifting again. Took another guy's program, got shredded. Then people started watching me because Rising Father was already built up by that point, not to
Okay.
170,000 followers, but I was at like
Right.
8, 10,000. So a lot of the guys who follow me were like, "Hey, what are you doing? How are you getting in shape? What do you do?" Like, so I just started forming my own little groups on the side, and just for free, we started working out, and I started telling them what I did. Like, this is what's working for me. So,
Right.
kind of like just free coaching. And I did that for months, and then they started getting crazy results with the system that I had them on, the system that I was doing. So then I said, all right, well, let's just see if we can make this a business. And I said the next month, I just said, all right, like we've been doing this for free for 3 months now. Like starting next month, I'm going to start. If you want to stay in this, I'm going to start charging, so we can have like a dedicated curriculum. I can actually have, service and value that I offer you.
Right. Right.
Every single one of them said yes. Um, and then immediately after like 1 month, I was matching my teaching salary, and then they brought on people all word of mouth. This is the first month I've ever paid for advertising. I've been around for 2 years. Like the entire growth of the program has all been word of mouth, people referring their friends and family, and it's just grown from there. And really the whole thing, and I brought on other experts. Like I got pro bodybuilders and elite health people that are in the program now, so they can take over different parts. I'm expanding. I have teams and people that work for me. So it's been a wild ride, but unbelievable. Like my life now is just far different than it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a little too long, but that's kind of the whole story.
No, no, I appreciate given that background and where you're at and what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think that's important for our listeners to understand where you're at. Um, Connect fatherhood and fitness for me, because that seems to be where you are focusing on, is mainly the fitness aspect. Why is being fit so important in as far as being a father?
I think fitness is an external symptom of a lot of the pillars that I talk about, such as discipline, having a good perspective, mindset, and habits. Like if you are disciplined, you have emotional control, you have good habits, and you have good perspective, then you're going to most likely also be taking care of your body. Um, and whenever you do that, you are going to be a fit person. So if you came to me, if a guy came to me and he said, like, my kids aren't listening to me, they don't respect me, like I've got no energy, they want me to play, I just sit on a couch and stare at my phone, and he was 100 pounds overweight, I'd
Hmm.
say it doesn't matter what I'm going to tell you right now. If you're 100 pounds overweight, like your habits, your discipline, your body is where we're going to start. Because the only way you can change your energy, your confidence, and the respect you're getting from people, if you hate the way you look, if you're unconfident, if you're frustrated with what you've allowed yourself to slip to, you're going to give that off to your family. So one of the things we start with, like in my program, is why I talk about it so much, is your body. It's your fitness. And then we mix that in with systems and optimizing and time blocking and mindset and perspective. When all those things are working together, then a guy can really transform.
Yeah, I like how you connect fitness with discipline too, because I think that's a huge part. Like you can tell when someone's disciplined just by looking at them, and their fitness levels. I also think it's super important, for fathers to think about fitness not just as a 1 day or 1 week or 1 month, time frame, but I'm looking at myself, and I'm 41. I'm looking at myself like I want to be able to run with my grandkids,
Yeah.
right? So like I'm looking like 20 some years down the road, and it's like, man, I've got to be in shape now, and I've got to carry this fitness into my older ages so that I
Hmm.
can run with my grandkids and play. Um, that perspective of time, I think, also is important. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, Nathan says to me, he's like, Dad, you're going to be the ripped grandpa. Like he just says that. He just knows. He's like in his mind, he knows that.
Right.
Um, they want their dad to look like that and to be that because he thinks it's really cool. He talks to me at school. He's like, "Yeah, man, yeah, Dad. Like my friend's dad could really use your program." He flat out says that to me. He's like, "How?" I was like, "Well, don't just let him be."
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, as I think once you hit the stat is once you hit 40 or 35 or something. I mean, we lose if we do nothing, we lose 3% of our muscle mass a year,
Mm.
something like that. Forget what Dr. Van Scoy told us, but that's significant. So you're constantly battling time. Once you get middle ages, you're just every year you are rotting away and you have to battle that if you want to stay in good shape. Like you look at you, you're 41, you're in great shape. You look at another 41-year-old, they look like they're in their 60s, because they don't take care of themselves. They just sit around and they're not moving their body. And if you're lacking muscle mass, man, you get in your 50s, 60s, like injuries, ripped everything, broken hips. You have no cushion around your joints. Good luck. You might be fine now, but man, how the heck are you going to run around with your grandkids and do any of that? I totally agree.
When do you work out? What time of day?
5:30, 5 a.m.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing because I know that you're an early riser. What do you say? And I'm also asking for myself because
Yeah.
I was an early riser for a long time, and like in the last year, it's been very hard. I've still been getting my
Yeah.
workouts in, but like one of the things that I battle with working out after work is that's time that I want to be spending with my kids. And now I
Yeah.
got to spend it, working out so that I can maintain my fitness levels for my kids and my family, knowing full well that working out early in the morning is the best time.
Yeah.
What do you have for guys who maybe like myself are struggling to consistently get up at that early hour?
So that's the whole thing. And that's one of the biggest focuses of how I coach people is perspective and mindset because you should work out early. Every guy wants to be up at 4 or 5 a.m. working out at the gym. I wanted to do that. How come I can't do that? I used to do that. Um, but it's getting yourself to be able to do that, which is the thing. And part of that is an environment. Like even in my program, every part of our daily accountability, like one of the things we do in the Men of Fire programs, you have daily accountability. And what that is every day you have to post a picture, kind of like Jocko does, of his wake up time.
Right.
So you're in my group, you see 50 people this morning posting 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., and then you have to post a picture of yourself at the gym. So if you're by yourself and you don't have that network and brotherhood around you, it's a lot harder. And I know some guys insist on going through life alone. Okay, that's fine. You're just adding a big weight to your back. But
Right.
it's hard because it's hard to find that motivation. Or you could let other people inspire you. Like just imagine if you were in a men's group and Jocko Willink was in there and David Goggins. We've got a whole group of guys doing that. So, and one of our new guys who joined us this last week, he was on our Zoom call yesterday. He said, he was talking about that. He said, I don't want to be the one guy who slept in a good way. Like a lot of us used to be on
It's
football teams,
yeah,
basketball teams. Like you don't want to let the team down. So when you feel like you're part of a team, a brotherhood, you don't want to let them down. So like, yeah, I don't want to be the one guy who doesn't post my gym pic or my thing. So that helps a lot. It's just being with a group of guys who are doing it together.
yeah, it's positive peer pressure, right?
Yeah.
Pressuring people to do positive things. Um, so as you were going through, your story of up and down, how did you handle that failure of putting the weight on, putting it off, like mentally? Like, how did you kind of rework or refocus your mind around that?
Well, I crushed myself for years. And that was one of my self-sabotaging habits, which is another focus, is whenever I did well, I would say I deserved a break. Then I would inevitably spiral into disgusted with myself. And then I would crush myself so hard with my own judgment that I would stay down for months. So I didn't do good with failure for a long time. Like I would judge myself harshly. I would call myself a failure after I failed. So it was like piercing myself with a knife twice, punishing myself after the thing already happened. And that would just continue to help me spiral. And because I had nobody to help shift my mindset out of that, I just stayed there stuck for years. So what helped me was brainwashing myself. And that because I was so negative in my
Right.
mindset. If I'm stuck with my own thoughts and I have no one pouring into me, I just tear myself down. So I had to start listening to audiobooks like Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, anyone that was saying, no, you can do this. You don't have to be like that. Financial stuff like Robert Kiyosaki, all those people were hired. My business coach, he was positive, helping me out. I joined other groups, listened to podcasts, reading books, all those things. I had to shift my perspective and mindset and switch my inner speech. Like reading books like Atomic Habits, Psycho-Cybernetics, all these books that are concerned with the way you speak to yourself and how you see yourself. And then you can start to shift the way you see failure. So now I'm not afraid to fail, whereas before I was terrified of it. Not only because of what the failure meant, but because I was afraid of what I would do to myself when I failed. Like, because when
Right.
I failed at my that ad agency. I mean, right now I look back on it, I don't call it a failure, but in that time it was a failure. I was so hard on myself. I just didn't want to try anything for like a year. I was like, I don't want to go through that torture again.
Yeah. Really, with the failure piece, have you seen the video of Kobe Bryant? I forget who was being interviewed by, but he talks about how failure is a made up construct. He's like, I don't believe in failure. He's like, because if I learn from it, I'm not failing, I'm learning and I'm growing. And I just think that's a great kind of perspective to have, because I think we all have a tendency to do that. We all have a tendency to beat ourselves up when things don't go the way that they should, or when things go terribly wrong. And if we learn from that experience, we can grow from it and get better at the next endeavor.
Yeah, failure can be the reason you're stuck or the thing that propels you. And because if you think about your day today, you're going to have 1,000 little micro decisions you need to make. And if every one of those decisions is guided by safety and running from risk and failure, what is your day going to end up versus somebody who is okay taking risk, okay failing, but knows they will learn along the way? I mean, you multiply that 365 days of the year, you're going to have a very different life at the end of it. I pound that into my guy's head and my own head about failure, because that's for a lot of guys, weight loss journeys or any type of personal transformation journey, failure is going to be part of it. So like if a guy joined me, they're be with me for 12 months, I would say, you're gonna mess up. This isn't like a 90-day get shredded program where we
Right.
starve you and then leave you to die.
Trying
This
to
is
create a lifestyle.
Yeah, like I tell the guys, like this isn't just a phase. That when you leave me, I want you to be a changed person on the inside. So to do that, you're going to go through some life events. If you're with me for a year, something tragic is going to happen. So the most important part of this process is how do you respond after that happens? And that's when the most important coaching comes in. That's whenever the most important discipline comes in, is whenever that big obstacle comes, is how do you rise from that?
I love that. What would you say maybe well, I want to go back because you mentioned psycho-cybernetics and atomic habits. What were maybe one or two other books that really made an impact, or resources books wise, that you read that really had an impact on your journey there?
Yeah, I would say definitely read those two. Out of those two, Psycho-Cybernetics is the more impactful one for me. I've been reading a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh, which is he's a Buddhist philosopher. His book called Fear is really good. There's one called Healing the Shame That Binds You. That's a really good one. It's about childhood trauma and dealing with that. And on our last call, we dug into that as well. Because if you're trying to get ripped or you're trying to get disciplined, what a lot of guys focus on is, okay, I'm failing because I'm not doing the carnivore diet, or because I'm not intermittent fasting, or because my squat technique isn't correct. It's like, no, you're failing because you're afraid of judgment and you have a comparison problem, because your parents only praised you when you achieved something. Like that's the reason you're failing right now at your fitness journey. It's a lot deeper than what your typical fitness program is going to sell you. So I focus on those things because I have found that that's where the true transformation happens, is on the inside.
Now, you mentioned you came from a very large family. I think
Hmm.
you had 11 siblings, or was there 11 total?
Yeah, 11 of us total. So I had 8 brothers and sisters.
Okay. And how was your father's impact on you as a child? How did that impact you to kind of be where you're at today?
Well, he had a crazy, crazy work ethic. He was just tirelessly worked, which luckily I grew up in an era without cell phones, iPads, switches, and we had just had one crappy TV, thank God.
Right.
Because I would have missed a lot of that. I would have missed the benefits of that work ethic. I remember times we had we had a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom house with 11 of us. And he also sent us all to Catholic school, which was expensive.
Right.
So we would have this above ground pool in the backyard. And I remember him sending me and my brothers out there to level the ground. And this was like a week long process. He was fanatical about getting every single little pebble out of the ground. And we'd be back there in the dirt, pulling these pebbles out of the ground for hours a day. And I can't imagine honestly having even my kids doing that or
Right.
most kids doing that, but we did it. And part of that was the work ethic that he pushed into us. So I benefited from that. We also didn't see him a lot because he worked so much. And a lot of my time was like longing for that father-son time and missing him. So that also fuels a lot of what I talk about was spending time with your kids and being there for them and how to make them feel wanted and warm. So both ways.
Yeah. Thank you. So one of your posts that I really like, there's a couple of them. I mean, there's a lot of them that I like, but there's a couple of them that have stuck out to me. One is the dad used to post,
Yeah.
right? That was one that always stuck with me. Can you walk us through that post a little bit, what you kind of said in that post, and I'll see if I can find it here while you're talking about it.
Yeah, that one's an old one. That's one of my first like viral posts, and I consider that like a rising father classic, like a movie
Right.
that I just keep on. So every couple months I'll repost that one. And I made that. It just came to me whenever got really scared one day when my kids were younger, and I skipped every night I would go up and me and my kids would read together, and then I skipped one of those nights for whatever reason. We were busy or something. And I went to sleep kind of terrified. And I was like, what if that was the last night I ever read to my kid? Like, what if life got in the way and then 5 years goes by? I think my kids were probably 8 and 6 when I wrote that post. So it's 2 years away. What if 5 years goes by and they're in their teens and they don't want me to read them ever again? And like that one night was the last night I ever read to them just because I forgot about it and never did it again. And then like there'll be a time when they say, yeah, Dad used to remember when you used to read to me at night? And it almost made me, I'm almost tearing up now just thinking about that. Like
Yeah.
I said straight out, it's a script of the post. Like I never want to hear my kids say that. Also going on walks with my daughter. She loves doing that and playing with my kids at the playground. Like, it's as I get older, there's things that aren't as fun to do, and I'm not as excited to do when your kids aren't toddlers anymore. When your kids are toddlers, like a lot of times they can provide you with energy to go play with them because they're so cute, and you can find yourself jumping off the park bench to play with them.
Right.
As they get older and you've been doing it for 10 years, you might be like, you still want to do that? You can find that temptation in yourself to say that. So it's a constant battle to battle that part of me down, say, no, you're going to give them your all for these 18 years forever. Like,
Yeah.
no, you're
Yeah.
not going to used to play with them. You're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, and I found the post. I'm going to play it here for our listeners too. But I have a rule for myself in the house that if I'm doing something and any of my kids ask to do something, whether it's playing catch, pitch to them, shoot hoops, kick a soccer ball, pass a volleyball, I have to stop whatever I'm doing and get up. And sometimes I don't really feel like it, but I make myself get up. Like sometimes I'm really comfortable watching a football game or something like that, and they'll come in like, "Hey, you want to go hit?" And in all honesty, I'd rather just sit and relax because my week's been whatever. But I make myself get up to do that because I think that's what we should do. We should want to be active. Oh no, go find someone else to play with, or like we should be the person they want to come to, that they know they can come to, to rely on us to be there for them, whether even if it's just to play. So here's that clip for our listeners really quick.
Used to. Dad used to play with us. Dad used to take us on adventures. Dad used to be so strong. Dad used to dance with me. Dad used to tell us stories. Dad used to push me to be my best. Dad used to go after his dreams. Never stop rising. Your family needs you on fire.
Yeah, like I said, I love that post. I love the way you worded it. It's had an impact on me, and I know we just met, a little bit ago, but it's something that resonates in my mind as well as I'm going through life with my kids. I've got 5, right? 2 sets of twins, 10, 8, and 6, and it's one of those things where, like you said, you don't know when the last time is going to be. You don't know the last time you're going to give your kid a piggyback ride. You don't know the last time you're going to, cuddle with them on the couch, because there's going to come a point in time where cuddling ain't cool. And then there's also going to come a point in time where cuddling's kind of like creepy, so you don't know when that last time is going to be. And to make sure that you're doing it to your fullest, I think is super important. So so you work with men, in a broad scope now. You got fitness, family. What are, some of the, maybe top 2 or 3 issues that you see men dealing with broadly the most?
A lot of guys struggle with marriage. Many
Cool.
guys have a relationship with their wife that needs work. Most, I would say even more than that, is guys just breaking promises to themselves and slowly allowing their standards to slip over time. So I would say if I were to pick 2, like those 2 definitely always need attention and strategies and guidance.
And who's been the biggest influence in your life on this journey to impact men and families?
Like a family member, or who you kind of thinking?
Someone in your life, someone close, whether it's a friend, a spouse, a parent, a cousin, and uncle.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably been my son. I think he's my firstborn, and whenever I had him, I was changed immediately and connected with the way I've never connected with anyone immediately with him. So if I like, he is, he's a lot of the soul of Rising Father.
How so?
A lot of what I talk about and a lot of my content that he loves being part of it. He asks to be in reels. He's like, Dad, we should go work out right now. And, all those kind of things. And, um, a lot of when I think of captions and scripts and the lessons I'm talking about, in my group and podcast, I tell stories. They involve him. 'Cause he's an emotional kid. He's like me in a lot of ways. And I think I see myself in him. So as I'm teaching him, I'm also kind of teaching the old me.
What are some of the things that you do to really kind of build your relationship with your kids? Any particular activities or rituals or habits or family routines that you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of things that we do. I did a podcast with, it was like 20 ways to build an unbreakable bond with your kids. That was one of them. So I go through just like a list of 20 things. Some of the things you can do are like tangible. Other ones are just ways of being that you could adjust, your tone, your voice, all those kind of things. I would say one of the best things we've done is finding hobbies and activities that we do together that we can both grow, such as jujitsu. Me, my daughter, and son both do jujitsu. It takes a lot of time, so we're with each other for hours. I now coach one of the kids' jujitsu classes, so we do that. So I get to spend time with them there, but also you get to teach life lessons as you're doing that with them. So he'll lose some matches in tournaments. You have to coach him through that. They develop resilience. They get to watch you grow. So I would say find a hobby, sport, something you can do with your kids at the same time. I'll just give you 2, that's like a tangible thing. Another thing you can do just with you. So that's something you can do. The other thing is a way you can change. One of the simplest things I did, starting when the kids were only a couple years old, is just making sure every time they come into the room, I'm greeting them with a smile. And that's something that your first week doing it is going to be tough, but now it's just natural for me. And it naturally comes to me now. So my kids, when they think of me, they just think, okay, dad loves me. Dad's warm. Dad's happy to see me. And that's what I want them to always be thinking. When they're at school, maybe having a rough day, they just know that when they come home, they'll have a dad who's smiling there to greet them. Instead of me looking stressed out, me having judgment in my eyes, me being frustrated, snapping, I would say those two things are pretty powerful.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done is on your phone, I have a, you know, iPhone. You can put reminders on there, and you can set them to go off geographically too. Use the GPS on the phone. So every time I pull up into the driveway, a reminder pops up on my phone because I've set it to pop up when I come to that part of my drive, and it says, "Be the best for your kids and bring the juice." Right? Bring the energy. So like it's just one of those things, like no matter what kind of day that I'm having, that pops up as I'm coming home. And it kind of is that reminder, like, yeah, I got to be the best for my kids. I got to bring the energy because I'm going to set the tone, for the rest of the night when I come home. And if I come home crabby and disengaged, it kind of sets the tone for all the kids and my wife as well. And I'm not perfect at it by any means. I don't think any dad can say that they're perfect at it. But when I'm not in that mood, I'm also honest with my kids about, hey, listen, I'm sorry. Like I've had a bad day, I've had some things going on here. I've had to deal with some major things. And, I'm just trying to get through that right now. And they start, they're at the ages right now where they can kind of understand that. But I think greeting them and bringing that energy is huge.
Yeah, I think that's great. I love the reminder idea.
How do you help those dads separate from work mode into dad mode when they come home from work?
We have to do something called transition. So, creating systems in your life is one of the pillars of what we do, and that is find an area of your life that's lagging and optimize it. One of those common areas is going from work mode to dad mode back to work mode or vice versa. So we help the guys build transitions, which means you have a set amount of time between your working and your home, or your home and you go to work, so you can shut off the work and be there for your family, or vice versa. So it's usually some type of routine or ritual that you have to do. It doesn't have to be long, where you are making sure everything is shut off. Let's just say you're going from work to being at home. You're going to do maybe a 5-10 minute transition time between work and home to where you're not thinking about work anymore and you can be present with your family. Because many guys walk into their house thinking about the emails they didn't send, they're thinking about a client call they still have to do, or they got distracted during the day, so they didn't do their work during work time, and then the family suffers because they're trying to get stuff done during family time. So part of that is being disciplined and having systems throughout the day to where you're actually getting things done during the day. And then the other part is having a transition to where you say, okay, I'm going to shut everything off. I'm going to change rooms. I'm going to do a meditation, breath work, whatever it is, visualization, to make sure I go and switch basically who I am. I'm no longer work guy. I am loving dad guy. One of the guys in my group, successful guy, he has like 6 businesses he runs. So he has high stress. He's
Yeah.
like worth 8 figures. He's a successful high stress guy. But also, he joined us so that we could help him with his discipline, so he can be more present with his family. He now wakes up at 3:30 every day. He goes to work. He comes back at 5:30, and then he's present. And he wasn't able to do that before. So he calls it the doorknob theory, and that's just whenever he turns the doorknob, he leaves all the baggage from work behind him, and no one in his family needs to know about the stresses of work, not his wife, no one. So we're here for. And then as soon as he walks through the door, he's a new man. So I'd say you need a defined transition between the two spaces.
Yeah, I like that. And I agree 100%. One of the things that I've talked to different dads about is changing your clothes, right? Almost kind of going, into that Superman, that super dad outfit. Like, taking the clothes off that you wore at work, because that just kind of, you're still wearing the issues from the day, and getting all that off, and then putting on new, fresh, clean clothes, relaxed clothes that you can play with your kids in and do things with them in, gives a different feel to your body, to your mind, and I think helps with that transition like you were talking about. What about leadership in your kids? What are some things that you do to help develop leadership traits in your own kids?
You have to, well, what we've done is foster independence early on. So when they were really young, we'd go to a playground together, and I'd give them little assignments where I would say, okay, your job is to go out and find 3 friends and come back with the name of 3 different kids, like 3 strangers, 3 kids at the playground who you didn't meet before, but you have to go do that. Many parents would think that's insane and dangerous and crazy, and
Right.
they'd want to just like hold their kid's hand for 2 hours at the playground. That wasn't me. I said, no, I want you to go out there, learn some social skills, get independent, and do that. And they did that. We did that for years. Now my kids are in elementary school. They both got huge friend groups. They can talk to people. They can socialize. Um, so it paid off. It worked.
Yeah.
The more you are able to talk to people, and the bigger network you have, the more successful, the more money you're going to make. So that's a great skill we gave them. One another simple thing we do is just like, for an example, at restaurants, we have them order food for themselves. Like many parents will order for their kids. Like Nathan wants a hamburger. We don't do that. I say, Nathan, you have to say it yourself. You have to tell the waitress if she can't hear you. If you mumbled it, you have to say it again confidently. And now they're 10 and 8, and they've been doing that for 3 years now. And, Nathan and Lauren are both confident enough to just order for themselves, talk to strangers, and do that. And if there's a problem with their food, they'll raise their hand, say there's a problem with my burger or whatever. And I know adults that are too scared to do that.
Right.
So we do little things like that to foster their independence. Same thing as, depending on the safety of your neighborhood, we allow our kids to walk by themselves further and further away, because we trust them, and we have to loosen the reins as they get older, because that's our job. It's that they need to survive on their own. So little things like that you can do throughout the years.
Awesome. And, so as our time's starting to kind of come to a close here, I also want to make sure that I emphasize, like I do in many of my podcasts, how important your role is as a father in your kids' lives. And you had a post, Chris, that really hit on that. And I'm going to play that, and then we can just kind of talk about that for a minute or so as we start to wrap up. But it's about how everything that we do is absorbed by our kids.
Every single thing we do as fathers is absorbed by our kids. They don't just mimic us, they actually become us. Every facial expression, word, action, emotion, they are our mirror. What are they going to reflect?
So where did that inspiration for that post come from?
I think like a lot of it comes from, came from my son. Just me thinking about our relationship and thinking about Rising Father and stories from the guys and our calls. And, I heard when someone was young, I remember him repeating a sarcastic phrase when he was just learning words. And it was a sarcastic phrase that I said weeks earlier. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you caught on to that. And he heard it, it bounced around his head, and I really didn't like the way it sounded coming out of his mouth. So I said, that's the way I sound. And a lot of times we are unaware of how we're coming off. One of the exercises I have my guys do is I say, you need to be aware of how you're coming off, your energy, your tone, your vibration to your family. So I challenge you to get a voice memo and record yourself talking to your family for an hour and re-listen to it, and actually hear from an outsider's perspective what you sound like. Like, are you that warm, loving father, or do you sound condescending and judgmental? And what everyone will inevitably find is that your kids just, at the beginning, look up to you no matter what, and will begin to mimic what you say, how you say it, your phrases, whether you talk respectfully, sarcastically, with judgment. And then as they get older, they have the choice to follow in your path or reject your path.
Mm-hmm.
You know, many people say, I want to be nothing like my father. And then they do the exact opposite. But even in that situation, you're still living your life. Your father's still controlling your decisions. If you decide you're that person, you're living in exact opposition to him. So whether you're the exact mirror or the opposite reflection, the father still has a massive, massive impact on his kids.
Yeah, and I always say too, especially for fathers of girls and have daughters, that you're the first man your daughter is going to fall in love with, and they're going to look for different qualities that you have in their future spouse one day, and are those qualities that you want your daughter to marry. So that just again goes into your point about, you know, becoming who we are, or marrying who we are someday down the road. But yeah, no, hey, I really appreciate you coming on. Before we wrap up here, where can our listeners find you at on social media, or any other platforms that you might be on?
Sure. Yeah. Instagram's the best spot for me. So just look up Rising Father. If you want to look at our men's program, it's called Men of Fire. There's a link there. The Rising Father podcast is everywhere you can listen to podcasts, so feel free to listen to that. It's me just telling stories of my kids, and like I did on here, talking about my perspective and lessons that I learned. So any of those places are great.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on. Thanks for adding value and impacting our community here, and look forward to staying in touch with you and connecting with you in the future.
Absolutely, man. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Raising Kingdom Warriors podcast. Our goal is simple: to add value to you and your life. And we pray that that was done today, and that you were encouraged and inspired by this episode. If you'd like to support this ministry, please consider praying for the mission and the vision of Raising Kingdom Warriors, as well as the men listening. Spread the word by sharing this podcast, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating. Or if you feel called to support this ministry financially, please visit the link below. To God be the glory.